Sri Lanka, Crisis and Recovery, Repression of Media and Violation of Human Rights. I am Shanti Mendis. This video series is to provide insight to the general public about the national crisis in Sri Lanka. The information is based on Sri Lanka, Tears and Dreams of a Fragile Democracy, a book published by me in 2022. This fifth video is about repression of the media and violation of human rights. Human rights are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. They are also enshrined in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which Sri Lanka became a state party in 1980. Therefore, Sri Lanka has a legally binding obligation to ensure the rights set out in that treaty. All people have equal rights. Everyone has the right to a decent standard of living, food, clothing, housing, education, medical and social services, to take part in the government of their country, to freedom of assembly and association, to freedom of opinion and expression, to life, liberty and security, and to freedom of thought, conscience and religion. What is the role of the media? Media keeps the public informed, influence public opinion, and exposes irregularities and corruption, nurturing a healthy democracy. Dishonest and dictatorial regimes fear forthright journalism and free flow of information to the public that can expose corruption, irregularities, and mismanagement. Suppression and manipulation of the media have enabled political leaders to move ahead with projects and policies which are not in the long-term national interest. In Sri Lanka, Sri Lankans have limited access to independent and unbiased information, making them vulnerable to misleading political propaganda. Most press outlets, television networks, radio outlets, and online media are affiliated with the state or politicians and their families. They are used to promote political agendas. A handful of independent journalists and media activists strive to disseminate fact-based information to the public through the YouTube and other channels, taking a considerable risk. However, half the population lack internet access. In 2022, Sri Lanka was ranked 146th in the world for press freedom by Reporters Sans Frontières in their World Press Freedom Index. Sri Lanka had dropped 19 places from 2021. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Sri Lanka has lost 17 journalists in the last 2 decades. 10 were murdered, 7 lost their lives while engaged in dangerous assignments. Many have either disappeared or emigrated to other countries. This is an irreparable loss to Sri Lanka. Scrutinizing the government has exposed journalists to risks. After the approval of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, because a powerful executive controls the state, the courts, and the police. This kind of situation was particularly noticeable between 2019 and 2022. Authoritarian regimes curb freedom of speech and expression and dissent. Examples are the abduction of Keetna, the murder of Lasantha Wickramatunge, the disappearance of Preeti Ekneligoda, the repression of environment activists, and the impeachment of a Chief Justice. Human rights violations can occur in many forms. Violence, torture, murder, massacres, and extrajudicial killings. War crimes and violations of religious freedom. Discrimination. Discrimination in the workplace based on race, age, or gender. Unfair treatment, for example, unfair trials, silencing of dissenters, and marginalization of women. Poverty, lack of resources for an adequate standard of living, and homelessness. All these are examples of human rights violations. From 2022 to 2024, the Wickramasinghe government stifled criticism with new repressive laws. The Online Safety Act, adopted by Parliament in January 2024, threatens the right to freedom of expression. The government continued to use the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which violates fundamental due process rights. A draft law to regulate non-governmental organizations, circulated by the government in January 2024, threatened the freedom of civil society organizations to function freely. The United Nations Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body that promotes and protects human rights around the world. The latest United Nations Human Rights Council resolution in September 2022 has highlighted many human rights issues in Sri Lanka. Corruption, violation of human rights, repression of dissent, impunity, lack of accountability, and the economic mismanagement. If Sri Lanka is to realize a viable recovery from the present national crisis, it is imperative that the new government addresses all these issues. President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka's government must restore the critical role of public scrutiny in promoting good governance and combating corruption. Thank you.